His name has become a household one in Hollywood. His characters have balls so large that they can reach the ISS. A career is the envy of many famous film people. He is an example of real masculinity both at 30 and at 90. It is Clint Eastwood. He is a well-known master of cinema art who has been delighting audiences worldwide with his films for 65 years. And in the breaks between work, he spits on public opinion about how he should live. Is it true that Eastwood did not want to have children? Why does he think directing is not a very intellectual profession? And why do actors love him so much and critics hate him so much? Welcome to the Biographer channel. We know that you are already impatient. Let's begin. Clint Eastwood was born May 31, 1930 in San Francisco. His parents belonged to the working class. His father, Clint Eastwood Sr., worked at a steel plant and his mother, Margaret, was an engineer. Irish, Dutch, English, and Scottish blood flows in his veins. The boy and his younger sister, Jean, were raised in a very religious family. Even though Clint Sr. and Margaret belonged to different faiths, he was a Presbyterian and she was a Mormon. Due to the Great Depression that plagued industrial cities, the Eastwood family moved frequently to find work and livelihood. His father tried himself in different areas. He worked as a salesman and a detective and agreed to any job. As a result, the Eastwoods settled in Piedmont in 1940, where they lived until the adulthood of Clint Jr. I was born when the Depression started. Until the age of 5 or 6, you do not notice difficulties. Parents always tried to do everything, so my sister and I had at least something, the actor recalled. In Piedmont, the actor's family was considered prosperous. They had a swimming pool, each parent drove their own car, and the house was in a respectable area. Sometimes Clint Sr. took the children to the cinema, where the boy first became interested in films. I always liked westerns as a kid. You think about it vicariously, like, I'd like to be doing that. But I never thought seriously of being in the acting profession. I didn't know where I wanted to be until I was drafted in the Army. His study didn't go well. Due to constant moving, he changed many educational institutions. I can't even say how many schools I went to, he said later. I remember that we moved very often, so I had few friends. He studied badly, so he was often left to improve his knowledge for the summer. In the middle classes, the boy was detained for half a year due to poor progress, and only in January 1946 he transferred to the senior classes with a technical bias. Clint was already very tall at school. By the time of graduation, his height reached 194 centimeters. According to his classmates, the young man was considered one of the prettiest in the class. He had a rugged beauty, broad shoulders, an upturned nose, and brown hair. So it's no surprise that he was popular with the girls, and he understood it. Clint already had a hard look then, but the young man was shy, as it was difficult for him to build new relationships. He did not even think about an acting career, and dreamed about becoming a jazz man. The negative experience at school also affected him. An English teacher, Gertrude Falk, staged a play at the school theater and invited Eastwood to join the cast. She decided that I should play the lead role, and it was a disaster. We were confused, missed a lot of lines. I swore then that the performance would mark the end of my acting career. Despite that, teachers noted Clint's penchant for music and his success in basketball. In high school, they tried to lure him back into the drama class because the young man was good-looking and physically well-built, but Clint didn't budge. He was more interested in auto mechanics. According to Clint, he was only interested in fast cars and beautiful women. But his school friends recalled that Clint was fond of playing the piano. He could play until he wiped his fingers to the blood, but he was very ashamed of that. Jazz was his greatest passion in music. Playing the piano, in his opinion, increased his chances with girls. Clint even learned hits that were popular at that time, which he did not like, but each time gathered a large audience. Also, Clint lied about his age to visit the local jazz bar. I always thought that jazz was the main thing that gave American culture to the world. It may be the only truly original art form we have. In parallel with his studies, the young man worked part-time, but mostly with hard physical labor. He delivered newspapers, brought golf clubs, dried hay, and cut wood. It took almost all time and effort, so Clint almost abandoned his studies. Then his parents transferred him to a technical school in Oakland, which gave him a chance to learn a profession and settle in life. But the technical school did not change Eastwood's attitude to learning. In the evenings, he met with local hooligans in leather jackets, with a bottle of beer, and who loved jazz. The boys hung out at a local club called Omar, where Clint played an old battered piano. And of course, he gathered a crowd around him. There is no information on whether Eastwood Jr. graduated from high school and whether he has a certificate, since the school records of 1949 are confidential. There is information that the future star was asked to leave school for disciplinary reasons. School friends of the future actor claimed that it was not so. He simply did not graduate from high school because he preferred to spend his time more interestingly. After school, Clint became independent. He was content with odd jobs. Eastwood worked as a lumberjack, a steel mill worker, a truck driver, a paper peddler, a lifeguard, a grocer, and a forest fireman. And at the time when he was not working, he lived with his school friend Harry Pendleton and had an active nightlife. After moving to Seattle, where by that time his parents had a new home, he still worked and played the piano in the bar in the evenings. I grew up listening to Ella Fitzgerald and Nat King Cole, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, Clifford Brown. After graduating from college, Clint lived with a friend. He did not want to leave his family for Seattle, where his father got a new job, and therefore, to provide for himself, he began to live on various earnings. There were no plans for the future, and work in aircraft construction at Boeing Aircraft was not impressive. According to him, Clint went with the flow, being in a triangle of work, machines, women. In my youth, I was a vagabond, a rolling stone, he recalled. Everything changed when in 1950 he became the target of the draft board. Such a not very bright prospect and craving for music overcame him, and in 1951 Clint decided to enter the University of Seattle. But he did not pass the full-time format due to low ratings, and so he decided to go to the military registration and enlistment office. In the same year, he was drafted into the Army and the U.S. Air Force. Eastwood spent his last night out drinking and listening to music in local bars. After that, he was sent to training at the Fort Ord base on the Monterey Peninsula. And then, following the results of the basic course, he was appointed a swimming instructor. It saved Clint from fighting in Korea. Working in the pool helped the young man to make new acquaintances, including people who were grouped into a special unit with some Hollywood stars. There, Eastwood met actors David Janssen and Martin Miller, who encouraged him to move to Los Angeles after the end of the service. There were also other acquaintances, so he became friends with musician Lenny Nyhouse, a former American football player, and Hollywood David Jensen. Together with Jensen, they often spent time in nightclubs and met local women, and for sexual adventures, they became a kind of legend. Another job for Clint in the Army was to show movies in the unit's barracks. I kept showing the Battle of San Pietro and must have seen it 50 times over 2 years. While temporarily a projectionist, he gradually began to master the laws of film production. Shots, rhythm, and content. The future actor often went on leave and arranged a short holiday for himself. So, in Carmel, he often went to local bars to listen to music and meet women. But one of these absences almost ended in disaster. As Clint was returning from a leave of absence in Seattle, the plane taking him there and back crashed. There was a depressurization of the cabin and the navigation system failed. The plane crashed 3 miles from Point Reyes seashore. Therefore, the pilot and Clint were forced to swim in the middle of the night, focusing on the lighthouse. I thought I would probably die here. Well, some people have made it through these things. I stared at the lights on the coast, which seemed so far away, and we went swimming. The Army gave rise to more than just Clint's professional career. One day, his friend Don Kincaid set Eastwood up on a blind date, introducing him to his girlfriend's friend. This young woman turned out to be Maggie Johnson, a beauty with a pretty face and a gorgeous figure. At that time, Maggie was dating another guy, therefore, Clint did not count on a long relationship. But in reality, it turned out differently. The young people liked each other so much that they promised to meet when Eastwood ended military service. After demobilization, Clint worked as a lifeguard on the beach, but ambitions took their toll. The young man went to conquer the big city and went to college in Los Angeles at the Department of Economics. In parallel, he worked part-time to have something to live on. During the day, he worked as a manager in a house in Beverly Hills where he rented a flat, and at night he worked at a gas station. On the advice of friends from the Army, Clint decided to start learning acting. As he later recalled, he was knocked out by arguments that there were the most beautiful girls among actresses. I started getting interested in acting because another friend was in a class. I thought, what the hell's that all about? I started delving into it. At first, I didn't know if I'd be able to be sort of hypnotized in front of people. And then you realize that there's a technique. You just bury yourself in the moment. And I got hooked. On the list of training was the Los Angeles Community College, where George Stanoff, a fan of Mikhail Chekhov's methods of teaching acting, taught. In parallel with that, Clint went to various auditions, took part in self-made theatrical performances, tried his hand at writing scripts, and pestered film companies with the hope of signing a contract. Soon, Clint met cinematographer Irvin Glassberg. from Universal Studios. He invited the young man to a meeting with director Arthur Lubin at the gas station. Glassberg invited me for the screen test. He put me in front of the camera and asked a few questions. I was really nervous. In general, he liked me. Beautiful appearance and high growth helped the future star. He passed screen tests and signed a contract with the studio despite minimal acting experience. But the director did not have the best impression of the acquaintance. He was quite amateurish. He didn't know which way to turn or which way to go or do anything, he recalled. Therefore, the main condition for signing the contract was acting courses. Clint was also offered a modest payment, $100 a week. According to some sources, $75. But that was enough to move to a new flat closer to the studio. Other aspiring Hollywood actors also lived in that house, which helped the young man to make new acquaintances. The first meeting with other studio staff members was also not very successful. On it, Clint had to pass a test to repeat the monologue of Alan Squire from the film Petrified Forest, 1936, and in one of the scenes to be naked in front of the audience. One of the studio workers recalled him. He looked like a typical hillbilly, skinny, rural with a protruding Adam's apple, a man of few words and slow. The problem was in the appearance of the young actor. He was too handsome for a character role, but not handsome enough for a romantic hero in female films. Boys like Clint were usually used by the studio to fill the space on the screen. When they let him watch the tape from the audition, he realized that he didn't look very good. I looked like a wuss, Clint recalled. A bad reputation in the studio and a lack of experience affected the work of Eastwood. He got minor roles in low-budget films with a low honorarium. Among them were Revenge of the Creature, Francis in the Navy, and Tarantula in 1955, and Away All Boats in 1956. The roles were so small that the actor had practically no lines. So, in the film Revenge of the Creature, Clint had the role of an unarmed laboratory assistant who miraculously discovered a missing rat. And in the film Tarantula, he was an Air Force pilot who was supposed to destroy a giant insect.
All right, Ben. Fire 2 rockets on this first pass.
In the drama Never Say Goodbye in 1956, he was given only half a minute of screen time. Despite the bad luck in his career, Eastwood managed to star in 8 projects in just 2 years. Even then, the actor's strengths appeared. A good sense of humor and an amazing influence on women, which he would use later in his career. But so far, Clint simply could not transfer those qualities to his characters. What is your favorite Eastwood film character? Write in the comments. Eastwood went to his speech defect specialist to correct a feature. He spoke in a whistling whisper. Despite the efforts, it was not possible to correct the defect, but over time, it would become a kind of actor's feature. In addition, Clint took acting lessons from Jack Coslin and Jess Kimmel. The efforts brought the first success. The guy was noticed and began to receive offers for the lead roles in films. Attractive and impressive Clint became in demand in the cinema world as a positive hero of westerns. Among them was Keith Williams in the film Ambush at Cimarron Pass, 1958. It was an adventure film about the union of soldiers and cowboys who tried to survive after the attacks of the Indians. Clint was very unhappy with the result. In a 1978 interview, he said, "It was so bad, I just kept sinking lower and lower in my seat," considering the picture being one of the worst westerns.
Sometimes you've got to lose before you finally win.
In the following film, The First Traveling Saleslady, he worked with Carol Channing and hoped for success, but it failed at the box office. He only got a minor role in the film, Lafayette Escadrille, which was released in 1958. Clint later recalled, "They were making a lot of cheap stuff, that is, B-movies. I always played some young lieutenant or laboratory assistant who would come and say, 'He is over there,' or 'So-and-so happened then,' or 'Doctor, here are the x-rays.' And in response, I heard something like, 'Guy, get out of here.' I left and that was it." He got lead role offers so rarely that the actor began to lose hope for a brighter future. Working with the studio was also short-lived. Universal terminated the contract with him after a year and a half. The film studio bosses argued that Clint had a wrong look. The producers especially did not like his teeth and Adam's apple. Eastwood was not prepared for that, but there was nothing he could do. And so he continued to go to auditions, train in the gym, and learn acting. When Eastwood finally got his coveted lead role, it turned out to be some low-end western that was so bad that Eastwood decided to quit. To earn money, the young man did menial jobs. He dug pits for pools, and he was a cleaner at a furniture factory. An accident saved him. Clint met with one of the directors of the Rawhide series while visiting a friend at the studio of the CBS television network. He was looking for a suitable young man for the supporting role of cowboy Rowdy Yates. Rowdy defined the actor's roles for the coming years. the pretty and good character who has principles and sticks to them.
I can't gun down anyone Mr. Favor hires.
Like this?
Like that.
According to Clint, such a character was not very interesting to him, but the leaders of the television network discovered a new star for themselves from the very first episodes. Clint brought a new cultural appeal to the show. Strong, handsome, rough, and good at shooting and fighting, he instantly pulled a young audience into the series. Years later, the actor warmly recalled that period.
Because we did some 200 and some odd episodes of that show over a 7-year period, so it was a great, it was obviously a very formative period in my lifetime.
Clint starred in the series for 7 years, from the first to the last episode. By the end of the first season, his $600 salary had doubled, and by the end of the series, it was already 6 numbers. The series did not become very popular, but played a crucial role in the actor's life. There, Clint first paid attention to directing and began to study the film business from the inside. Young Eastwood was invited to shoot one of the episodes, which unfortunately was never realized. The contract with CBS meant that the actor could not participate in any third-party projects. It was until 1953 that the network loosened the reins a little after season 4 of the series began to slowly slide down. To promote him, the bosses decided to use their lead star, Clint, somewhere else. The company asked the actor to be a guest star on an episode of the popular sitcom Mr. Ed, where he played himself. He agreed on the condition that he would not wear cowboy clothes. But it was not the advertisement that Eastwood was counting on. The episode with the talking horse was as strange as all those on the show. But he proudly passed the test and silently took the money. At the same time, his personal life was actively seething. A tall and well-built Eastwood has always attracted the attention of many women, and he did not miss the opportunity to use it. In the press, his name was constantly accompanied by the word womanizer. Relations with Maggie Johnson were impetuous. After the end of The Surface, Clint moved to Los Angeles, where a girl was waiting for him. They began to meet regularly, and soon the question of marriage arose. For Maggie, who grew up in a very decent family, the choice of a man for life was controversial. She was not at all like the standard Eastwood ladies of not very good behavior. Therefore, Clint was obliged to take the next step and tie the knot. In 1953, Clint Eastwood Jr. took Maggie Johnson as his wife in front of parish priest Henry David Gray. And everything would be fine, but during the beginning of their relationship, another woman got pregnant by the young man. He had a brief affair with her in Seattle when Clint was visiting his parents. The girl decided to keep the child but gave the newborn girl up for adoption. While studying acting classes, Eastwood had affairs with local girls. One of them was Mamie Van Doren, who later claimed that sex raged between the students. Years later, he recalled that the first year of marriage was terrible for him. If I had to go through this again, I think I would remain a bachelor for the rest of my days. I liked doing what I wanted. I did not tolerate any interference in my life. Meg had to immediately learn the following about me. I will always do what I want. And she had to accept it, because if she hadn't, we would never have gotten married. For the first 7 years, the couple had a big problem. Clint and Meg did not have children. The reason for that was the actor's desire. He admitted to biographer Richard Schickel that he still remained a child of the Depression period, and he did not want to repeat the experience of his parents. Another reason was the disagreement in marriage due to the excessive sexual appetite and the betrayal of the actor. In the monographs, you can find information that Eastwood's agents had 2 sets of ledgers. One was for the tax office, and the second was for the wife, who should not have known how much Clint spent on women. As a result, the marriage with Maggie, the actor still has 2 children, son Kyle, born in 1968, and daughter Allison, who was born 4 years later. For Meg, that step was a confirmation of the existence of her unusual marriage. But the marriage could hardly be called happy. According to biographers, the concept of marital fidelity never made much sense to Clint. Maggie was content with the fact that he just came home in the evenings. Clint had affairs with other women whenever possible, especially on film sets. Friends and colleagues called their marriage open, although it did not remain clear whether it suited Maggie or whether she resigned herself to what was happening. Later, she would say about her husband, "He is such a cowboy, a real cowboy of the 20th century. We are not supporters of the theory of complete unity." While filming Rawhide, the actor began a relationship with dancer and stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis. Biographers called their romance intense and very sexy. Roxanne did not hide their relationship and, in every possible way, paid attention to Clint on the set, but at the same time, she did not demand more than she had. Everyone involved in the filming of Rawhide knew about their romance, but the actor did not pay attention to it. Their relationship lasted 14 years, during which she gave birth to a daughter named Kimber. She gave birth to her in 1964 in the Hollywood hospital's Cedars-Sinai, and, to save Clint, she recorded the baby in her last name. The actor promised Tunis to support them financially, but they should keep everything a secret. The girl was hidden from the press until the 80s, but despite that, she became the first officially recognized illegitimate Clint's child. Maggie knew about the existence of Roxanne, and even one day suddenly appeared on the set where she met her personally, but it did not change the situation. The real success was waiting for Clint ahead, and he was again associated with the cowboy films in the cinema. His works of the following decades would form a unique image of a laconic hero of westerns and action films. The Italian director Sergio Leone noticed the actor in Rawhide. He invited Clint to his new project, A Fistful of Dollars, which was inspired by Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo and became the beginning of the famous Dollar Trilogy. Leone looked for a textured guy for the lead role and liked Eastwood. His filming partners were supposed to be Eli Wallach and Lee Van Cleef. Clint was so disgusted with the role of the good guy from Rawhide that he agreed to Leone's offer, even on the condition that the shooting had to go to Italy and Spain, and he had to work on the series too. I realized the story was Yojimbo by Akira Kurosawa, which I was a big fan of, and I was going to make $10,000 to work in Spain and Italy, and I'd never been to Europe, so I figured that I would go and have a good trip. It's another example of how things in life are built around something else. Many years later, director Sergio Leone noted that he approved Clint for the lead role in his films only because the actor had two suitable facial expressions, with a hat and without a hat. The director was struck by the actor's manner of moving slowly. "I thought Clint looked a lot like a cat," he recalled. During filming, the actor wore the same poncho, forbidding everyone to wash it throughout the entire period of the trilogy production. It was a kind of talisman for the actor.
When a man with a .45 meets a man with a rifle.
The first film, A Fistful of Dollars, was released in 1964, and although the film was accused of plagiarism in Asian countries, it was a huge success in Europe and the USA. With a budget of $200,000, it earned $14 million and gave rise to a subgenre, spaghetti western. During the same period, Clint woke up famous. Therefore, it is not surprising that they made two sequels a few years later, For a Few Dollars More in 1965 and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in 1966. All three films were united by the figure of the protagonist, silent, in a poncho, cowboy boots, a cigarillo in his mouth, and ambiguous morality. The main motive of the film is considered one of the most recognizable melodies in cinematic history. This experience became important in the actor's life.
However, at that particular time in my life, it was a great adventure to go off to Europe and take a European approach to the American West. It was a very great adventure.
The film was so similar to the original source that Leone later received a lawsuit, and no wonder the accuracy of the coincidence in details is striking. The image of a lone warrior, a similar montage rhythm and structure of action. So, fights begin with a long, intense wait when the camera concentrates on every movement and look of opponents. By the way, Kurosawa won the case in court, receiving $100,000 and 15% of the box office. But it was worth it. Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood made a breakthrough in the image of the Western genre, which by the early 60s had almost died. They created a classic Puritan hero in a hat and on a horse, who is a complex of unambiguous positive qualities and well-established cliches. Other characters throughout the trilogy come up with different names for Eastwood's character. Therefore, he is known as the man with no name in the film. In 2008, Empire selected him as the 43rd greatest cinematic character of all time. The Dollar Trilogy, as the series of films about the man with no name was later called, changed. It became more rigid and realistic. Eastwood fit into that world like no other. Finally, he could form his unique image, which would accompany his following films. A man of few words with narrowed eyes, self-confident, somewhat cynical, and tough. New York Times reporter John Vindiker pointed out that he was a Western hero without the Westerner's traditional heroic characteristics. The Man with No Name has become an iconic character and has been featured in some of Eastwood's best westerns, and he became a model of masculinity that inspired men for decades. His appeal lay, to use Eastwood's words, in his ability to hack his way through, because such a person is almost a mythical character in our day and age, as everything becomes more complicated. Each of Clint's roles would be a reflection of himself. The Dollar Trilogy was an incredible success. The November 18, 1964 issue of Daily Variety wrote, "A superb Western. The energetic and tongue-in-cheek James Bond-esque approach appeals to both sophisticated connoisseurs and casual moviegoers alike. This film is a prime candidate for the most pleasant surprise of the year." Hollywood and Europe noticed Eastwood and offers rained down on him. Over the following 2 decades, the actor starred in action films and crime dramas. Westerns with his participation became classics of the genre. In addition, the Dollar Trilogy allowed Clint to work with a director who had a huge impact on his future directorial style. In an interview with the LA Times, he said, "Sergio was a very unusual person. He saw the scale and size of films differently. I learned a lot from him." On the fee earned from the Dollar Trilogy, the actor created his own production company, Malpaso Productions, in 1967. Malpaso was supposed to be significantly different from standard companies. The staff consisted of Clint, producer Robert Daly, and secretary/editor Sonia Chernus. Journalist Arthur Knight recalled his first impression of the office. The walls were decorated with posters, and one corner stood a life-sized cardboard cutout of Eastwood who, like his most famous on-screen characters, seemed uncomfortably one-dimensional and oddly sinister. However, the most bizarre object in his private office was a 3-foot-tall, ball-shaped, shockingly pink bunny piggy bank. In a 1974 interview with Playboy magazine, Clint spoke of his project. "I had a great desire to show the film industry that it needed to be simplified so they could make more films with smaller teams. So we won't have 26 staff in a fancy office at Malpaso. A pack of 6 cans of beer, a few sheets of paper, and a couple of pencils are all I need for business." Malpaso Productions would release the vast majority of his films. One of those films was the American Western Hang 'em High, directed in 1968 by Ted Post. One of Eastwood's best films of that period is Where Eagles Dare, also from '68, a classic action film set in World War II. Eastwood plays the role of an American Lieutenant Schaefer, who is involved in the general's rescue operation. Here he tries on a uniform in the image of a character without duality and morality, and Clint did a great job.
Not that I could see, but this place is so damn crowded and there's several other exits.
In the same year, the actor starred in Don Siegel's film Coogan's Bluff, which marked the beginning of their long-term collaboration. Thanks to that collaboration, they made films Two Mules for Sister Sarah, Kelly's Heroes, Paint Your Wagon, and Where Eagles Dare, in which Clint Eastwood played the lead roles. Their work was very complex and was based on balancing on the edge of the abyss. Clint, who felt like a star, lived and worked according to the principle, "Don't tell me what to do if you don't know what to do." Siegel was a very authoritarian director and worked on the principle, "Do what you're told." Everyone kept their line of defense and did not concede, but surprisingly, Siegel and Clint quickly hit it off. Mutual respect has become the key to understanding. They created the concept of a project that excited viewers and critics for a decade. The actor took a lot from Siegel as a director: the organization of film production, saving time and resources when filming, and a sharp and fast way of editing action scenes. Don Siegel was incredibly active, impetuous, energetic. He thought very quickly, did not fail a single take, Clint recalled. In 1969, the first and only musical with the actor, Paint Your Wagon, was released. Critics and spectators considered it not his best work. It was not a commercial success, but was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Picture, Musical, or Comedy. In 1971, Clint was waiting for a new takeoff on the career ladder thanks to the film Dirty Harry, where he played the main character. His hero, Harry Callahan, for the severity and integrity nicknamed Dirty Harry, is the same laconic loner.
I got to know.
He is a policeman who breaks the law and punishes criminals in the name of his principles. The actor performed all the stunts in the film, including the scene where his character jumps from a bridge onto the roof of a stolen bus. Clint recalled, "I liked the script. It was avant-garde. Don Siegel liked it too. At that time, such a story was considered politically incorrect, and we, who took up it, were suicidal. It was very bold, at the same time, such a real childhood dream. Big guns." The film was criticized for its brutality and biased portrayal of police officers. Critic Pauline Kael found it full of fascist medievalism. Pauline became one of the most sworn opponents of the actor. She was one of the most influential American film critics of that time who disliked Eastwood's work. Their confrontation has grown over the years and perhaps deserves to be filmed. Kael called Clint Eastwood characters psychopaths, fascists, and brought to the point of macho absurdity. Clint Eastwood is a completely unscrupulous killer. He is an extremely mediocre director, she wrote. But Harry became so popular that it had a sequel, capturing, according to one writer, the mood of many Americans who are frustrated with an inefficient law enforcement system. There were 4 sequels about Harry Callahan between 1971 and 1988: Magnum Power, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, and The Deadpool. The image of a cynical, incredulous cop with his own ideas about law and justice became the basis for a series of similar films in American cinema. The role, like several others in which Clint played tough-talking, no-nonsense police officers, have made him an enduring cultural icon of masculinity. In 1971, another cult thriller, Play Misty for Me, was released. It was Eastwood's debut as a director. He recalled being surprised that Universal immediately agreed to his offer, but they agreed on the condition that Clint would work as a director for free. "I would pay them myself for such an experience. That's the kind of mindset I've had since the Depression," he recalled. Clint also brought to life the role of DJ David Garner, who falls into the trap of female stalking. The actor could perfectly play the image of a bohemian intellectual, which is very different from his standard masculine characters.
I got this show that I'm trying to set, and it happens to be a very important show to me. That means I gotta pick the music, I gotta write the lead-ins, and I gotta find some poetry. Now, come on, will you?
Poetry? Let me help you. I'm terrific with poetry. I know all kinds by heart.
From now on, he would combine 2 roles on the set: an actor in the lead roles and a director. He learned the skill by watching other masters. Among them are Sergio Leone, whom he admired, and Don Siegel, who is considered a veteran of American filmmaking. Clint talked about Siegel. "He knew exactly what he wanted to shoot and did nothing else. His influence on me was decisive in terms of what I wanted to do and what the purpose of the film was. He was amazing." From his first film, Clint's style as a director clearly loomed. It is about long shots, accompanying filming, aerial footage, and a low camera position when shooting characters. From that moment on, he tried to realize himself as a director of various genres. He has westerns, comedies, and police dramas on his account. During the period of the late 70s and early 80s, Clint formed as a director and probed various topics, although there was also a tendency to certain issues. Thus, many of Eastwood's themes are archetypal, raising issues that worried people 50 years ago and now. Simple, human, regular, revealing the imperfection of the universe. His bureaucrats are stupid, his journalists are unscrupulous, and his women and men are beaten, and only a person can change his own life. Clint's characters are not heroes at all. They are contradictory, morally complex, and multi-layered. Just like his films. Just like Clint himself. After all, he had long earned a reputation as a man with peculiar views who didn't care about public opinion. Despite his inexperience, by the mid-70s, Eastwood was recognized as a talented director with an already established style. The actor became a star thanks to westerns and was considered a kind of personification of the characters of this genre, but he tried to go the other way in directing. Often, his films do not have one specific genre, and the work is submitted in a non-standard form. "I always like to feel like I'm doing something different in every film. If it's not, if I feel like I'm doing something that reminds me of things I've done before, it makes me anxious, like I'm repeating myself." In 1971, Life magazine featured a photograph of Clint on the cover with the caption, "The world's favorite movie star is no kidding, Clint Eastwood." After that, he continued to win box office and financial success, as well as increasing critical acclaim well into the 1990s. But the actor does not forget to act in other people's projects, but they were not as always successful. So the Gothic story, The Beguiled, by Don Siegel, released in 1971, was not very successful at the box office. It stars Geraldine Page and Elizabeth Hartman alongside Clint. It was Eastwood's first film in which, according to the plot, his character, using charisma and manhood, influenced women. But the director summed up the idea differently. According to Siegel, the film deals with the themes of sex, violence, and revenge, and is based on the basic desire of women to castrate men. The actor considered participation in the film as an opportunity to play true emotions and not totally operatic and not lighting cannons with cigars. He said about this role, "My characters have sensitivity and vulnerabilities, but they're still winners. Winners tell themselves I'm as bright as the next person. I can do it. Nothing can stop me." The film was well received by critics. Kevin Thomas at the Los Angeles Times praised The Beguiled as a film of psychological suspense laced with dark humor that is a triumph of style, totally engrossing, and utterly convincing. And on the review site, it got a 7 out of 10. The next directorial project was Breezy, a melodrama starring William Holden and Kay Lentz. The story of a romance between an aging realtor and a 17-year-old girl was well received by critics. Thus, Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times wrote of Eastwood that Breezy is a deeply felt, fully realized film that is entirely his own. It's an offbeat love story told with rare delicacy and perception. But at the box office, the film failed, barely recouping its budget. After that, there were two more expensive movies, Jahan's Brifter and The Eigen Sensation. The latter became another police work in Eastwood's career. As usual, he combined the lead role and the director's chair. In the film, the actor plays secret U.S. intelligence agent Jonathan Hemlock, who, despite his resignation, eliminated enemy intelligence agents.
Do you realize the implications of that offer?
For one of the scenes, Eastwood had to climb Mount Eiger in the Alps, and he successfully coped with it. In 1974, the actor starred in the action comedy Thunderbolt and Lightfoot by Michael Cimino, for whom it became his directorial debut. And already in 1977, he took on his first adventure film, The Outlaw Josie Wales. Eastwood also starred as Josie Wales, a Missouri farmer seeking revenge for the murder of his family during the Civil War.
Ashes to ashes. Dust to dust. Lord gives. Lord takes away.
The film production was difficult. Mostly, it was because of the constant conflict between Eastwood and Philip Kaufman, the scriptwriter and director. He really wanted Eastwood's character to be as close as possible to the original novel. On the other hand, Kaufman was less pleased with the novel's political stance and wanted to gloss over the aspect, arguing that it was written by a crude fascist. Eastwood, on the contrary, opposed that. He invested his own money in the production, his company participated in the film production, and he believed he had the right to rule. As a result, the shooting began in the neither yours nor ours mode and was accompanied by constant bickering. In addition, the actor was annoyed by the manner of Kaufman's work. He believed the director worked too slowly and was too meticulous about every detail. Because of that, the budget grew, but requests to speed up remained only requests. On the other hand, Eastwood got into the creative process all the time. A growing relationship between Eastwood and actress Sandra Locke, for whom Kaufman also had feelings, added discord. As a result, when the director left, Clint decided to take the reins of power into his own hands. While Kaufman was away, he filmed the necessary scenes, and after moving to a new location, he completely abandoned the interfering director. In one of the interviews, he explained his actions. "I didn't like Kaufman's interpretation, and he refused to make the film the way I needed it." In the end, Josie Wales was a huge success. Eastwood was credited as director. But not all the works of those years were successful. Every Which Way But Loose was one of those films. Critics completely crushed it. Clint recalled, "The film was doomed to fail. Everybody, my agent, my lawyers, they said don't do Every Which Way But Loose, but I wanted to participate in a film that children can finally see. And then, I like participating in various ridiculous projects. It reminds me of that school plays. The audience does not mind at all when someone else is in front of their eyes behaves ridiculously." In 1979, the actor returned to Don Siegel in a film that critics consider the pinnacle of their creative union. Escape from Alcatraz was based on real events. In 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers did the impossible. They escaped from one of the most protected and impregnable places.
Welcome to Alcatraz.
The film plot is focused on preparing for the escape, so there are few action scenes. As in many other works by Eastwood, the main thing here is not the adventure or plot, but the character he portrays. The role of Morris differs little from the one we already know from Dirty Harry. Morris is a loner, unusual, risky, smart, and psychologically balanced. He uses his knowledge to do what no one else has done before him. The actor said about his acting and directing, "You have to trust your instincts. Without sounding like a pseudo-intellectual dipshit, it's my responsibility to be true to myself. If it works for me, it's right." And his instincts did not fail him. If, in the 70s, Clint's approach to directing was considered controversial and some of his work was perceived by critics disapprovingly, then from the beginning of the 80s, the film community began to look differently at the director's contribution to cinema. Hostility was surely replaced by admiration. In 1985, he was awarded the Order of Arts and Letters, an honorary French award. In an interview with New York Times Magazine, Eastwood said he never asked for respectability. His work is a way to find his own way. "Anytime anybody tells me the trend is such and such, I go the opposite direction. I hate the idea of trends," he said. The personal life of the actor was still very stormy. Many ascribe to actor affairs with California swimming champion Anita Loest, restaurant critic Gail Green, French model Kathy Regan, the film set colleagues Inger Stevens, Gene Seberg, Joanne Harris, actresses Jill Banner, Catherine Deneuve, Susan St. James, singer Keely Smith. And it was only in the 70s and became known to the press. One of the key women in Eastwood's life was Sandra Locke, whom he met at Universal Studios. Their relationship was swift, and soon the couple lived together. Even though Maggie was still the legal wife of the actor, he promised Sandra that there were no more feelings between him and Maggie. Locke was also married, but her husband Gordon Anderson was a gay sculptor and used their marriage as a formality. Sandra starred in all of Eastwood's films during that period, and the actor himself claimed that he fell in love for real, and he even dedicated a song to the girl with the line, "She made me monogamous." They moved out of the Eastwood house to start a new life. Maggie knew about the rival and did not hide her dislike. It resulted in a restriction in communication between Clint and their children. Happiness did not last long. Locke was considered his common-law wife for 14 years, but after a few years, other women began to attract hot macho men. Sandra stated, "I do believe that Clint loved me as much as he is capable of love, and in the first 8 or so years together, he really wanted to be the man he knew I saw in him. I think he tried very hard, but eventually, one's nature cannot change." There was another problem in their relationship: children. In the late 70s, Locke had several abortions for medical reasons, and after that, she was completely sterilized. But after their breakup, the woman claimed that the abortions were forced, and she decided on such decisions under Clint's pressure. She filed a $1.5 million lawsuit against her former lover. Eastwood reacted to it in his own way. He paid Warner Bros. So that they would not let Locke direct, which she had taken up by that time. The scandal received wide publicity in the world press and ended in court. Sandra won the case, winning several tens of millions of dollars from the actor. After receiving the money, Sandra published a memoir with such intimate revelations that Eastwood spared no expense to buy out all the rights to her book. Since the mid-80s, Clint has increasingly gravitated towards directing. Someone believes that such a path was predetermined for him since many actors one way or another try themselves as directors.
Kind of building towards the fact that maybe I'd be directing films someday, maybe I'd be producing films someday. But I didn't know. I just sort of formed it and then let it happen.
It was Eastwood's way to reach his full potential, show his qualities on the big screen, and work on issues he could not have realized otherwise. Directing is primarily an emotional profession, not an intellectual one, the actor admitted. At the same time, as a director, Clint is appreciated for his approach to work, which is rare in Hollywood. He shoots films in a short time and with a small budget. He does not like when the actor has a lot of makeup, and most works are filmed from the first or second take. Eastwood does not like long auditions or rehearsals. He stakes on quality and a team in which many have been working with him for more than 10 years. In his opinion, the director needs to keep the pace of the filming process so that the team does not feel like they are marking time. The cast and crew feel like they are going somewhere when they go to work each day and feel like they are accomplishing something and not just doing the same scene each day. He shared in an interview for Filmcraft Directing. While working on a film on set, I only discussed the technical details of the upcoming scene. I let the actors have their own say and try to create an atmosphere in which they can express their most secret talents, to make them easily trust their instincts. He is one of the few actors who managed to make more than 20 films, and almost none of his works fall into a well-defined genre category. For example, Pale Rider and Unforgiven are outside the scope of standard westerns. Bronco Billy is markedly different in style and theme from contemporary comedies. The director's work is characterized by a group approach to film production. Authorship claims are all crap. It's an ensemble, 50, 40, 20, or whatever number of people you have on your team. They all work together, he said. In addition, he likes to take risks. For example, hiring amateur actors to play the lead roles in Gran Torino or filming Letters from Iwo Jima in Japanese. The latter was generally part of the dialogy, and we will talk about it later.
I think no one has any real idea. You can just guess. You can think, well, this sounds like a good combination, but there's so many things that can go right and so many things that can go wrong.
In 1982, Eastwood released the adventure thriller Firefox, based on the novel of the same name by Craig Thomas. The lead role of Agent Mitchell Gant, as usual, went to Clint himself. In general, the role of law enforcement officers is well done due to the actor's appearance and stately figure. In the same year, another directorial work, a musical feature film, Honky Tonk Man, which, despite critical acclaim, failed at the box office. Further such films as Pale Rider, Heartbreak Ridge, and Bird appeared in the director's portfolio. The biographical film Bird, released in 1988, tells about the fate of Jasmine Charlie Parker, the famous saxophonist. Clint grew up in the jazz era, in the 30s and 40s, and adopted the love for a short time. Therefore, it is not surprising that his musical passion manifested itself in his work. The director invited Forrest Whitaker to portray the main character, and the actor lived up to expectations. A gloomy, realistic, sensual film that shows life as it is, with success, concerts, love troubles, the death of a child, and a suicide attempt. Whitaker was able to convey the whole tragedy of the short life of a talented musician who tried to reconcile music and drugs, and the hope that the main character found in jazz. Critics called Bird a very personal work of Eastwood, on a par with Unforgiven. The film was awarded the Oscar for Best Sound, and Clint was awarded the Golden Globe for Best Director. Two more directorial projects came out 2 years later, The Rookie and White Hunter Black Heart, in which Eastwood combined both acting and the director's chair. The Rookie is an action movie starring Eastwood and Charlie Sheen. Eastwood portrayed a seasoned policeman, Nick Polovsky, and Sheen, a young rich man, David Ackerman. White Hunter Black Heart is a story about filming a melodrama in the realities of Africa by director John Wilson. It is kind of description of a real situation. John Huston's work on the film The African Queen. It is a delicate work that reveals the life and philosophy of the great director.
You're never going to be a good screenwriter, and you know why?
No, John, why don't you tell me why?
Because you let 85 million popcorn eaters pull you this way and that way.
Most of Clint's work focuses on the development of characters and the interactions between them. Stories have a direct, understandable plot without ramifications and ambiguity. But with age, the director goes deeper into moral and ethical issues and asks questions about the meaning of life and the value of human existence. Clint rethinks his life through his work, reflects, and tries to come to terms with the inevitable. Depressive themes are increasingly found in Eastwood with age. One of the pleasures of my type of career is the search for things from different angles. You look at things differently now than when you were 30. You change or expand your thoughts as you get older. Or you look back at things you did right or wrong, and it's fun to explore it at a different time in life. In 1992, another work by Clint was released, which is a landmark in his career. Unforgiven is considered one of the best westerns of the decade, even though the script was written back in the 70s. Clint was in no hurry to start filming, realizing his idea only 20 years later. He admitted to the LA Times that he got acquainted with history in 1980 and liked it very much, but Clint put it off and forgot about it. 10 years have passed, and suddenly I found that the script is still on my desk. I took it out, reread it, and I liked it even more, he admitted. A complex, dramatic story about the internal changes of a former criminal who is forced to return to what he was running from for the sake of a noble cause. He believes he has changed.
I ain't like that anymore, kid. This whiskey done it much as anything else. I ain't had a drop in over 10 years. My wife, she cured me of that.
But is it really so? Here you will not see a single set of moral principles, and the protagonist's motivation can hardly be called unambiguous. Eastwood did not deviate from the familiar role that he has been able to formulate for himself since his work on the Dollar Trilogy. The protagonist is a kind of symbiosis of the man with no name and Harry Callahan, and therefore it is not surprising that the film is dedicated to Sergio Leone and Don Siegel. The film was a huge box office success, earning $159 million and an 8.8 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. The website's critical consensus states, as both director and star, Clint Eastwood strips away decades of Hollywood varnish applied to the Wild West and emerges with a series of harshly eloquent statements about the nature of violence. Unforgiven won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year, and Eastwood was named Best Director. It was the first, but not the last Oscar in his life. After the ceremony, Eastwood told reporters that the wait was worth it. He was quoted as saying in the Philadelphia Inquirer, "I think it means more to me now. If you win it when you're 20 or 30 years old, you're wondering, where do I go from here? You learn to take your work seriously and not yourself seriously. And that comes with time." One of the subsequent films, very non-standard for Eastwood's work, is the melodrama The Bridges of Madison County, released in 1995. In it, Eastwood shared the lead role with Meryl Streep. They played a couple who, due to circumstances, could not be together. The same year, the film community confirmed its respect for Eastwood's body of work. During the Academy Awards, he was awarded the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award, which is given to producers or directors for consistently high-quality motion picture production. Although much less, Clint continued to act in projects of other directors. So, in 1984, the crime thriller Tightrope was released. Eastwood starred in a team with Genevieve Bujold, Don Hedaya, Marco St. John, and Allison Eastwood. He gets the familiar role of a New Orleans cop on the hunt for a Jack the Ripper-style serial killer. The next iconic role was the image of the bounty hunter Tommy Novak in the film Pink Cadillac. There, the actor was accompanied by Bernadette Peters and Timothy Carhart. In the next thriller, In the Line of Fire, the actor got the role of American Secret Service agent Frank Horrigan, who was trying to atone for the past and save another president. The talented acting of Clint Eastwood was accompanied by great actors Robert Allen Booth, Aaron Michael Lacey, and William Shipman. Since 1993, Clint starred only in those films he directed himself, believing in the principle, if you want to do something well, do it yourself. In addition, the actor has written music for more than half a dozen of his films. But he is not about just cinema. Eastwood also tried to realize himself in politics. In 1986, he became mayor of Carmel, California, and he stayed in office for 2 years. The actor was not afraid to express political views that were not so unambiguous. In 1952, during the U.S. presidential election, Clint registered as a Republican and later supported Richard Nixon and Mitt Romney in the elections. During an interview, he admitted that he became a Republican because he believed in Eisenhower's promise to resolve the Korean conflict. Moreover, one of his films, American Sniper, was regarded by the Republicans as support for the party in the fight against terrorism. At the same time, Eastwood also showed commitment to democratic ideals. So he supported the California Democratic Party and Senator Dianne Feinstein in 1994, and in 2003, he led a fundraiser for California Democratic Governor Gray Davis. He also supported Davis on an alternative energy bill. Officially, the actor calls himself either politically neutral or a libertarian. In 2004, he said in an interview, "I don't see myself as conservative, but I'm not ultra-leftist. I like the libertarian view, which is to leave everyone alone. Even as a kid, I was annoyed by people who wanted to tell everyone how to live." And in 2009, the actor announced that he was a member of the Libertarian Party. Among his political convictions, several key ones can be distinguished. Eastwood is a supporter of the policy of non-intervention of the state in private life and the economy. While he does not approve of broad social assistance, he believes it is necessary to eradicate the problem of lack of money through education and financial incentives. In addition, Clint maintains a liberal stance on abortion and same-sex marriage. In an interview with GQ magazine, he criticized the Republican Party for its stance on the issue, stating, "I don't give a fuck about who wants to get married to anybody else. Why not? We're making a big deal out of things we shouldn't be making a deal out of. They go on and on with all this bullshit about sanctity. Don't give me that sanctity crap, just give everybody the chance to have the life they want." At the same time, the actor supports the law on gun control, believing that all weapons should be registered.
The Democrats who were watching thought I was going senile, and the Republicans knew I was. But it was actually just trying to enjoy myself.
Right.
Clint does not forget about women either. Among others, many famous names appear in his life. In 1969, he began a stormy romance with Jean Seberg, right after auditioning for a role in the film Paint Your Wagon, where the beautiful Seberg impressed him. The affair was interrupted only when Maggie appeared on the set with a baby. But as soon as she left, the relationship quickly resumed and continued even after the end of filming. In 1985, the actor met Jacelyn Reeves, with whom he lived for 3 years. But they managed to have 2 children, a son, Scott, and a daughter, Catherine. We don't know how their relationship developed, but after the breakup, Jacelyn called him a cruel person. In the early 90s, Clint's heart was won by the fiery Frances Fisher. In 1993, their daughter Francesca was born, but the couple did not live together for long, until 1995. Eastwood's next chosen one was TV presenter Dina Ruiz, who was 35 years younger than him. Clint was not embarrassed by the age difference. "You are as old as you feel, and I feel great. Of course, if you are a man, then when you are older, you have certain advantages." He argued his choice. Dina became his second official wife, and she spoke with irony about that. "The fact that I'm only the second woman he has married really touches me." They married in May 1996, and immediately after their honeymoon in Hawaii, the woman became pregnant. In that marriage, the actor had another daughter, Morgan, born in 1996. Clint was happy. He commented on his relationship with Dina. "Dina keeps me in shape. Let's call it that. We both love family, pets, and playing golf very much. For me, as I said before, life is like the last 9 holes on a golf course. Sometimes it happens that on the final 9 you play best. And not because you've become stronger, but because you've become wiser." They were a great couple. It was not only a marriage, but also a close, strong friendship. Everyone liked to communicate with them, said a source close to the Eastwoods. Their relationship lasted until 2013. The reason for the breakup, Dina called betrayal. Well, who would have thought? By the way, did you remember to subscribe to our channel? If you don't want to miss the release of new videos, click on the bell and the subscribe button, and we continue. Clint Eastwood met the new millennium with new projects. Despite his advanced age, he remains at the top, but exclusively as a director. He is still cheerful and creatively productive. He continues to actively work on scripts, producing films that fans worldwide are looking forward to. I never look back. I never think about my past work. I have worked hard over the years and am proud of it. However, it is difficult to say which of my works I like the most. Clint not only filmed but also starred in his films. According to him, he continues to learn something new and strives for perfection only thanks to the work. In 2000, a perky comedy was released with the participation of Donald Sutherland, Tommy Lee Jones, James Garner, and of course, Eastwood himself, Space Cowboys. The story follows an elderly group of Air Force pilots who go into space to fix a problem with one of their satellites.
First one to pass out buys a beer tonight.
Get on.
The film became a box office hit, grossing over $100 million. It indicated that the director has successfully mastered not only the dramatic niche, but also the comedy one, with a frivolous plot in advance. 2 years later, Clint appeared in Blood Work as veteran FBI officer Terry McCaleb. The story is based on the best-selling book by Michael Connelly. Eastwood's character is again pursuing a serial killer, but fate creates an obstacle for him in the form of a heart attack. 2003 gave Clint another Oscar as well as a Golden Globe for the thriller Mystic River, a powerful film that tells how violence breaks people's lives.
Jimmy, what did you do?
Thanks for finding my daughter's killer, Sean.
During the filming, Eastwood's standard approach emerged. Sometimes the actors rehearsed without me on their own. It was in the spirit of their characters. I love to see how this mechanism works on actors' faces when they first speak the text in front of the camera. The shooting was easy and fun. In 2004, Eastwood's next hit came out, the sports drama $1 Million Baby. In it, Clint plays a boxing trainer who takes on a young girl named Maggie in the form of Hilary Swank. Maggie dreams of a career as a professional fighter and almost reaches her dream until a tragedy crosses everything out. At 74, Eastwood makes one of the best films of his career. Simple, honest, revealing human nature. He skillfully portrays the relationship between the coach and the athlete, which is transformed into the story of the relationship between father and daughter.
I got nobody but you, Frankie.
Well, you've got me. At least that is until we find you a good manager.
Before the filming, the film went through production hell, since studios didn't want to finance the project, and even Warner Bros. Refused, even though the director has a long experience of cooperation with it. As a result, Clint negotiated with the head of Lakeshore Entertainment, Tom Rosenberg, pushed Warner Bros., and completed filming in less than 40 days. For her role, Swank spent several months training hard in the gym to gain muscle mass, and she succeeded. Thanks to perseverance, she gained 10 kilograms and the necessary athletic physique. Even damaged ligaments in the knee did not stop her. But that zeal had another side. The actress got infected by staphylococcus, but hid it from Eastwood as not to disrupt the work on the film. However, Hilary's health problems worsened, and as a result, she ended up in the hospital for several weeks. But the filming had to be postponed. It wasn't just Swank who trained and suffered. All the actors who were involved in the fighting scenes underwent special training, and in their work, they used real boxing equipment. For realism, they also used an old sports hall, which was converted into a boxing hall. Hilary recalled that it was easy for her to get used to the role since she went through a similar life path. I grew up in very modest circumstances. Growing up in an environment close to poverty gives you a slightly different view of the world than living in abundance. I know what it means to be an outsider. Probably in each of us there is an outsider, to one degree or another. Eastwood was deservedly awarded his second directorial Oscar for that film. He became the oldest recipient of an Academy Award, receiving the statuette at 74. Critics believe that the story is a reflection of some of the life views of Clint himself. For example, being a conservative, he turns out to be a euthanasia supporter, which is unacceptable to right-wing views. Among the works of recent years are two dramas about the Second World War, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, released in 2006. Both films reveal the same historical period but from different angles. Flags of Our Fathers is about the American side of the conflict. The story tells of a young man's attempt to learn the fate of his father on Iwo Jima. Ryan Phillippe, Jesse Bradford, and Paul Walker are among the talented actors in the film. Letters from Iwo Jima is about the experience and fate of Japanese soldiers during World War II. The plot was based on correspondence found on the battlefield on the same island. Both films have received widespread praise. Letters from Iwo Jima received 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director. The film is considered Eastwood's best work in his entire directorial career. Clint's success didn't end there. In 2008, the audience saw the amazing thriller Changeling, starring Angelina Jolie. The story tells about the period between 1928 and 1935 and the fate of the woman Christine Collins and her son.
That is not Walter.
It's not Walter as you remember him.
In the same year, the world saw Gran Torino, one of the most recognized works of Eastwood among the audience. This story is dedicated to a veteran of the Korean War, played by the director himself. According to tradition, the character is a laconic, lonely, and not the most accommodating character, but his life changes dramatically after meeting a boy from a dysfunctional family. There, as usual, the director reveals complex topics, past mistakes, regrets, and responsibility for one's choice. Gran Torino refers to the very personal films of the actor in which he projects his own life experience. In 2010, immediately after finishing the work on the mystical thriller J. Edgar, Eastwood set to film a biopic about FBI founder Edgar Hoover, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. For the role, Leo cut his fee to $2 million instead of $20.
I know it's hard for you to imagine today, but there was a time when the average American feared for their safety and survival, Agent Smith.
The film received mixed reviews. Someone criticized the lighting and makeup of the protagonist, but the majority praised the script and the professionalism of the actors. 2014 brought another work that caused a stir. Directed by Eastwood, the drama American Sniper revealed the other side of the war through the prism of one man's state of mind. The film was accused of promoting war, the lack of chemistry between the main character and his colleagues, and the protracted scenes and dialogues. But Clint, as always, directly and honestly described the sacrifice that has to be paid on the other side of the gun. In 2016, Eastwood directed the film Sully, which starred Tom Hanks, Anna Gunn, and Aaron Eckhart. The plot is centered around the pilot Chesley Sullenberger, who was able to land a plane on the Hudson River. The story is based on real events of 2009 and resonated.
What if I did blow this?
What are you saying?
What if I did get this wrong so close to the end of my career? If I endangered the lives of all those passengers?
Another biographical work of Clint is the 1517 to Paris, which was released in 2018. It was followed by the drama The Mule, in which the actor plays an elderly gigolo who decides to make money by transporting drugs. Both pictures received mixed reviews from viewers and critics, but grossed an impressive box office. In 2019, the biographical drama Richard Jewell was released, starring Paul Walter Hauser and Sam Rockwell. In the center of the plot is a security guard who defused a bomb at the Olympics, so he came under the close attention of special services.
I can help you, but only if I know the truth. Did you do this?
No.
Filming of the concerts and the explosion scene was at the original location. Although the film was praised by critics, Eastwood was strongly criticized for the misogynistic representation of women. The Olivia Wilde character coaxes the facts from the FBI agents through the bed, and for homophobia since Jewell was suspected of homosexuality and he asked accusers to admit that he did not like men. Clint Eastwood's latest work at the time of this video is the 2021 neo-western Cry Macho. There, he is a producer, director, and the film's main character. Mike Milo is a broken horse driver from Texas who agrees to escort a Mexican boy across the American border. On the road, they face a series of not too dangerous dangers and experiences that change the two of them. The film is an adaptation of the 1975 novel by Nathan Richard Nash, which has lain on the shelves for several decades and waited in the wings. Or maybe Eastwood, who can turn a simple and friendly story into a touching road movie. At some point, the director decided it was time to return to an idea that had been on the shelf for 40 years. I just thought in the back of my mind that maybe it was time. I figured I was at the right age to go to Mexico City and kidnap a kid. The New York Times described the project as a parable about the clash of generations, which tells about two fellow travelers who unwittingly help each other in the hardest periods of their lives. Eastwood tells Entertainment Weekly, "It's about a man who has been through some hard times in his life, and then unexpectedly, another challenge is brought to the foreground. He would normally never do it, but he's a man of his word. He follows through, and it starts his life over again." Despite the age of 91, the actor has not lost his signature smile or inner strength. His dominance in the film transformed from a sense of danger and risk to unhurried, straightforward simplicity. Although the main character has clearly not yet lost his gunpowder and is ready to kick ass for a couple of 3 villains, but the film failed at the box office and collected only $15 million out of the $33 million spent. Meanwhile, Eastwood's romantic adventures continued, despite his age. In 2013, immediately after breaking up with Dina, he started an affair with actress Erica Fisher. We want to note at that time, this guy was already 83. The woman is considered the reason for the separation of Clint and Dina. The actor did not hide the truth about his adventures, and even more, he honestly admitted to the journalist that he had secretly met with his mistress even before the divorce. But a source close to Eastwood told a different story. Initially, Dina Ruis and Scott Fisher became lovers, which was the reason for the divorce of the Fisher family. After that, Free Erica called Eastwood and arranged a meeting with him to open his eyes to how things were going. As a result, the meeting turned out to be fatal, and a new romance began to spin. So basically, the couple just swapped husbands and wives with each other. In addition to Erica, it was rumored that he had a relationship with a waitress from the Mission Ranch Hotel, Christina Sandera. Despite the ups and downs in love, the actor maintains a good relationship with all his children. By the way, he has 8 of them in total. According to information on the web, Eastwood's sons and daughters communicate with each other and even go on joint outings. So it was, for example, during the premiere of the film The 1517 to Paris with the participation of the actor. Almost all of them followed in their father's footsteps. Daughters Kimber, Allison, Francesca, Catherine, and Morgan, and son Scott connected their lives with acting. Scott Eastwood at the moment is the most famous and most successful actor of all, but he began his career under the name of his mother Reeves to avoid prejudice. According to the artist, his father often took him to the shooting, so the young man decided to try his hand in this field. And when Scott graduated from the university, Eastwood Sr. helped him take the first steps in his career. In an interview with Esquire magazine, Scott admitted that he really missed his father as a child. He lived with his mother for most of his childhood as Clint worked very hard. They reunited when the future actor came to California as a teenager. Since that time, Eastwood Sr. has made a significant contribution to the upbringing of his son. "My father's definitely old school, and he raised me with integrity, to be places on time, show up, and work hard." According to Clint, he could become a much better father only with his youngest daughter Morgan. "My daughter takes precedence over everything. I go to all the softball games and look ridiculous out there because almost everybody's got a much younger father than me. But it's fun. I think you appreciate a lot more when you get to my age." Even at his age, Clint never loses his spirits. He still golfs. "I'm not breaking any records," he says, plays the piano every day, and is perpetually mulling his next project. In an interview with Parade, he shared that he doesn't let the old man in. "I've met a lot of older people in my life, and some are pathetic, and some are inspirational," he continued. Almost 4 decades later, Clint Eastwood, who according to a poll of Americans in 2009, was recognized as the most beloved actor after Johnny Depp and Denzel Washington were named, would say, "I'm constantly figuring out what I'm going to do next. I still love talking somebody's idea, whether it's a book or a play, and developing it. Maybe other people want to do a few movies and quit, and that's great. Maybe they've got something else they could do and keep busy. I don't. I love movies and enjoy making them." Actor and director, he's not ready to retire. He is still cheerful and ready to conquer new heights. But what is the secret of his inexhaustible coolness? We have collected all the coolest features of the famous actor and director in this video. Click on the icon and find out how to become the most sought-after macho by his example. But don't forget to like this video first. Biographer was with you. Bye-bye.